virtual green room, Douglas B. Sharp, his book, Dr. Hale's Home Remedy and Recipe Book. He's joining us here again on Author's Corner with me, Kate Delaney, here on America Tonight. We had such a great off-air conversation. It's really fascinating how this all came together. So, Doug, welcome to the program.
Hello. It's good to be here.
How did this happen? Tell everybody what you told me. How did you decide you were going to put this book together?
Well, this book was found in a trunk of books that was taken to my grandmother's house from a lumber baron's house in Lewiston, Michigan, when she sold it in 1972. And I found it years later in her attic in this trunk, and there was a whole bunch of books dated from 1863 to about 1920, and one of them was original edition of Longfellow's Wayside Inn. But this was a doctor's personal handwritten handbook with dates in it from 1844 to 1863. And so, when after I discovered it, I was really curious about it, and so it was always a plan of mine to publish this book. It gives a glimpse of Michigan history and the practice of medicine at that time. And
what a treasure trove you get finding this and seeing all these handwritten things and going all the way back to 1844 and through 1863. So tell us what we'll find in the book. What kind of things will we see in the book?
Well, what you'll find is this is his personal recipes that he used to create his pills and his remedies for the various diseases that were at the time. And, there were things like diphtheria and ague and a lot of cholera and a lot of things of that sort that we have pretty much eradicated today. But there was a lot of these remedies were really quite interesting. On the very first page of the recipes, when the recipes start, there's a code at the bottom of the page, and it sort of corresponds to A through Z. And elsewhere in the book, he uses some of those that code to have his ingredients. And like the pill that he has for ague, for example, it was had quinine 10 grains, arsenic 5 grains, and opium 15 grains. So he put arsenic and opium in code. And I thought it very interesting of all these different things. So if it doesn't kill you, it'll make you feel good.
Yeah, no kidding. Boy, I could have just sat there for hours with you going through this. Just incredible. And now it's available in this book, and it's just a slice of history. Imagine being a doctor during those years in Michigan, like you said. And that's not the whole story here. Who is Dr. Hale related to?
Well, it wasn't related to any of us, and we had to figure out, who is this person? And for years, we wondered. My grandmother didn't know, and then she passed on. And then it was just a couple of years ago, I did an internet search on the names in this book just for fun, and it actually popped up a reference. It was a 1913 reference of the history of Calhoun County that mentioned the family history. And through that, I found out one ancestor, Nathaniel Wallace, was an aide to George Washington in the Revolutionary War, and the other grandfather, Benjamin Hale, he was the origin of most of the remedies in the book. And so it mentioned Benjamin, and then Jerome and Lucy Hale, and then Wallace Hale, who apparently compiled the book itself and wrote all these things down. And so I had to, and so it then mentioned Walter Hale, who was Wallace's brother, and his descendants. And I got the name of his son and grandson out of this reference. Well, I found the grandson in the 1940 reference, the census, and he had two sons, and there was one of those sons had a telephone number, and so I called him up. And,
and what was that conversation like?
Well, I told him, was your dad this name Orville? And then he said, yes. And then your grandfather, Frederick? What about your great-grandfather, Walter? Your great-great-grandfather, Jerome? And your great-great-great-grandfather, Benjamin. He said, how do you know that? Well, I think I got a piece of your family history here. And he said, well, I think you need to talk to my sister, Lois, who's the family historian, and it turned out she actually has another book that's quite similar to this. And the book that I have actually mentions that book. So it was quite an interesting conversation. I learned that Dr. Wallace A was a doctor in Ashley, Michigan, a little town up north of where I live. But and so I'm all friends on Facebook with all the Hale family. But then the question was, well, how did that end up in our hands? And in this lumber baron's house, my Uncle Elmer, my great uncle Elmer, my grandmother inherited that house from him, and we use it as a vacation property. But and so the mystery continued until I figured out that Uncle Elmer's had a farm down by Albion, which was next to the farm that the Hale family had. So the theory I have is that he borrowed the book and never returned it.
I like it. Boy, so interesting to put that puzzle together. What was the toughest part about interpreting the handwriting? And you mentioned the code in the beginning, and you think about spelling. It had to have taken you some time to go through this.
Yeah, it did. And a lot of the handwriting was a little bit difficult to read. And some of course, the Webster's dictionary just was out at that time. So people didn't have that, and it was they would spell things the way that they sounded, So dose was DOCE, and there were a lot of things of that sort that I had to figure out. And some of the ingredients, I looked them all up and made sure that I had the spellings correct, so that people Then I would actually make a footnote of what they actually are, and a chemical formula or whatever it is. And it's, but it was a massive work to do this. And then the units of measure were different. There were 12 ounces to the English pound, and then they had grams, scruples, and grains. And so I detail all out how they all were different in the way that they were in the conversion of the units of measure to what we know today. Nowadays we use metric, but we had 16 ounces to the pound, and they eliminated grams and scruples, apparently.
Wow.
But they all have their own special symbols, and then they, in order to indicate how many, how much it was used in the formula, they had that all in Roman numerals. So it was a little bit pesky to figure this all out.
I bet. Yeah, to go through that all. Hey, we have just like a minute or so left. What do you hope people take away from reading Dr. Hale's Home Remedy and Recipe Book, a doctor's personal handwritten handbook written between 1844 and 1863? You can get it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. What do you hope they take away?
Well, I hope that they get a picture of what medicine was like in the time of Darwin and the time of the 1800s, because and how much things are different now. But some of those old remedies still probably are viable, although some of them I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. Some of them are crossed off, and so Oh, well, I guess that one didn't work. The guy died,
Yeah, exactly. How fun. Well, how fun to speak with you, and go and pick up this book and get that slice of history. Douglas Sharp, thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate you, Kate.
Visit www.greatwritersmedia.com. Email us at info@greatwritersmedia.com. Call us at 877-600-5469. Subscribe now.